Good afternoon, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it must be answers to Ask the Mayor. I'm Mike Walsh. I'm at 740 Main Street, which is Town Hall. And today we're going to take on about 4 questions. Question number 135, and that's since the inception to date, up to questions 139. But before I go into the questions, I want to talk a little bit of trash. And how I mean that is in a sincere way. Within the last couple of days, based on the buzz we're seeing on social media, you have received, or about 5,100 people received a letter from the town. It was a 2-page letter, and it started with "Dear bulky permit holders." And the reason I know that there's 5,100 out there is we used the list of anybody who has historically held a bulky waste permit. As you know, we've completely redone the basically trash and refuse collection here in East Hartford. The first thing we did is we hired a third party called All American Waste, and they now drive some of our trucks. We sold them our trucks in a arm's length transaction, and it's worked pretty good. We also have a desire to get a handle on our bulky waste because people were simply pushing things out to the curb. So that was completely reconstituted. And then finally, step 3 is the transfer station. So we wanted to make a communication to everybody, and if the chatter I read on social media is any indication, there's a lot of confused people out there. So let me take a moment to divide this problem into 3 component parts. Number 1, your trash is picked up by All American Waste on your trash collection day by pushing your cart out to the curb. Your recycling is also picked up by a different company as you also push that out to the curb. One day we will marry those 2 contracts. That day is a couple of years down the road, and the same company will be picking up your green bins and your blue bins. Interestingly enough, the town of East Hartford owns those green and blue bins and lends them to residents to use. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and I think that's pretty understandable because we haven't had virtually any questions after the rollout of the particular week-to-week trash collection. Now let's switch to number 2, the transfer station in bulky waste. And let me take bulky waste first. If you recall, we are now giving away 2 free curbside pickups. Doesn't require a ticket, doesn't require anything other than for you to call All American Waste. They will track it. We have about 17,000 individual households in town. There's some more 2-family, 3-family, and 4-family and so forth. The town council and the administration made accommodations for those. So for the bulk of those 17,000 people, I'll say over 16,000 people will be fine with 2 free permits a year. So really what we're talking about is the users that go to the transfer station beyond the 2 free curbside pickups. And in the letter, so let's talk about the basically the transfer station. You're getting 2 free permits, or 2 free pickups curbside. Everyone is. Let's remember that. And when I say everyone, it's for residential properties that are 1 and 2 family are 2 free visits per year. Properties that are 3 to 6 families are 4 visits. So again, we've attempted to accommodate everybody. Most of that will satisfy everybody throughout the year. No need for tickets, no need to reach in your pocket, no need for anything. Now, back to the transfer station. And the reason we sent the letter out is to be transparent. In the letter, and again, based on social media, everyone got it in the last couple of days. In the center of page 1, it reminds residents that curbside bulky waste pickup is free for the first 2 visits based on the parameters I just mentioned. Based on what I was reading out there, people were not reading both letters. The second one is this, and it's done in both English and Spanish, and it basically says if you go there to the transfer station with a trunk load, it's $10. If you go there with looks like an SUV, $10. If you go there with what looks to be a Jeep, $10. If you go there with a small trailer, $10. And if you go there with a small pickup truck, $10. Senior discounts applies to that, so it's $5. If you have existing tickets, they're called supplemental tickets that don't expire, Those are as good as cash. You can use those. If those tickets are gone, you do have to reach into your pocket. We are not taking cash at the transfer station because it's much easier to take electronic forms of payment. So look to your website, www.easthartfordct.gov or .com, and you'll find all of this under the Public Works site. That being said, if you're a frequent flyer and you have much larger trucks, think of the Clampetts, for those of you that are old enough, when they moved from the hills to Beverly Hills and they had their truck overloaded. If you bring something like that to the transfer station, that's $40. If you bring an extended van, that's $40. And if you bring a much larger trailer with sides and it's fully stocked, that'll be $40. You want to bring a big truck and a trailer, that's $60. You want to bring a horse trailer, that's $60. You want to bring a big truck with a horse trailer, that's $80. And if you want to bring an 18-wheeler truck or something substantially that size, that's $100. Now, the chatter on social media, which honestly perplexes me, is, Mayor Mike, why are you raising my taxes? Well, if you're getting 2 free a year, I'm not sure how I'm raising your taxes. If you're used to going to the transfer station significantly more times than the 2 free pickups, then this is what they call a user charge. And a user charge is because you, for whatever reason, are using the service inordinately more than every other resident in town. Accordingly, what's fair is you should pay proportionately more. So I wanted to explain that in granular detail. This has been vetted through public hearings, it's been vetted through the town council, it's been vetted through my administration, and we think it's the least costly way of collecting trash of any town we're aware of, and the most effective at getting bulky waste off our streets, because as I said, people were just pushing it. Why are we doing this? Some people are offended about the charges. The fact of the matter is, when I got here as finance director, it cost about $30 a ton to dispose of garbage. Today, it's about $105 a ton, and it's heading up to about $165 a ton in the next several years. So costs are rising, and they're rising because there's lack of space for permitted landfills in Connecticut. So what they must do is they must load it onto rail cars, they must load it onto tractor trailers, and it gets hauled out to Ohio and Pennsylvania. In any way, shape, or form, given what gas prices and diesel prices are, that's substantially more costly than it was in the past. So again, that's the explanation. Doing a real good job picking up your weekly trash, doing a real good job giving you 2 free pickups. These are the employees of the town and the outside All American Waste. And I think we're doing a fair job by really charging those people who have an inordinate amount of waste that they bring to the transfer station. So if you have any questions after reviewing the website, certainly call my office, call the Public Works Department. We're happy to provide the explanation, but I wanted to proactively get it out to you today. Now on to the questions. Question number 135 comes from Christopher. And Christopher, I had answered this directly to you the day I got it, but for the residents, he's been keeping an eye on the fiber installation project being done by Sci-Fi. My understanding is that construction is underway. Is there a contact at Sci-Fi that residents can speak to regarding when they can expect fiber to be installed in their neighborhood? I realize this is a 2-year project, but I'd like to get a general idea. I provided him with the Sci-Fi updates. I provided him with the color-coded map. I believe there's approximately 7 different areas that they'll be installing in one area by each time. But if you want to send me an email or you want to phone my office, Connor Martin, who's my chief of staff, is taking the lead. He will provide you with that name of Sci-Fi. And in particular, if we've gone through your driveway apron or made a mess of your front, I want to hear about it because we want to hold that contractor accountable. Again, as Christopher mentioned, this is a 1.5 to 2 year project, but it will allow East Hartford to be a destination because we will have the fastest fiber in the country. So that's good news. Submission number 137 comes from Nancy, and this is actually a follow-up to a question I answered last week. It's regarding Yanner Park off Rolling Meadow. East Hartford is listed as the owner. What can we as a neighborhood do so the park can get used by the neighborhood? Now, I had a partial recollection, which I provided at the last Ask the Mayor answers. And I went back and checked with Gary McKeon, who's our longtime Parks and Rec supervisor. He's now an associate director. And this particular park, the reason it has no trespassing signs and it has no dumping signs is the residents around there many years ago, approximately 15, rejected the construction of a soccer field at Eaner Park. So we have nothing planned because there was an outpouring of support to do nothing. So the town did put up those signs in terms of no trespassing and no dumping. We're happy to take them down, but Nancy, if you're interested in doing something, what I don't want to do is have the false start that we had about 15 years ago with the soccer field. Tell us what you and your neighbors want in that area, and we'll begin the process of adding it to the 5-year or 10-year capital improvement plan. We'll get it before the town council, and one day we'll get it funded. Maybe that's a walking trail, maybe that's something more sophisticated. But my point is, we don't want to put something in the neighborhood that the neighborhood doesn't want. Last but not least, there's a history of not wanting a soccer field here. So Nancy, let us know what we can do for the neighborhood. Question number 138 comes from Pat. Is there a sidewalk inspector? Who is responsible for maintaining sidewalks in front of your residence? Some are in bad shape. Several Ask the Mayors ago, I released some statistics on our sidewalks. So for Pat, I'll mention it again. The sidewalks are the responsibility of the town, just as the curbs are, just as the drainage is, just as the roadway is. That's relatively new, the last several years, but for all intents and purposes, it's our responsibility. We do have a sidewalk inspector, only recently hired on a part-time basis, and we have an inventory. I believe there's about 250 miles of sidewalks, and if you think about that, we have about 151 miles of roads. Most roads have 2 sides of sidewalk. Some don't, that's why you get the 250 mile number. We know there are 1 mile of sidewalks that are in atrocious shape, and we're working on those as we speak. There's also about 7 miles that need immediate repair in the next, say, 1 to 3 years. And then beyond that, we have each section of sidewalk graded according to when it would need to be replaced. So, Pat, I have no doubt that you talk about some sidewalks that are in deplorable shape, but if I can encourage you to go back to the town's website or the mobile app called Q Alert. That's the mechanism that residents can use. They can put in the location of the bad sidewalk, and it gets routed to the department that ultimately has the opportunity to inspect that, has the opportunity to inventory that, and to me, that's the fastest way to get you some results with respect to that. Question 139, which is our last question of the afternoon, comes from Carol. When will the schedule be available for this year's townwide curbside leaf collection? And when this message came in, it was 7:16 in the evening on September 16th. I had a meeting the very next day with our Public Works Department. Not on this, but I meet with all departments at least once a month. In this particular case, the timing was impeccable. They told me that the last week of October, there will be schedules published in both the Gazette, on social media, and on the town's website that'll further say where we're starting and in what direction that we're going. If you recall, Carol, we go in 2 directions. Sometimes we start at a particular area of town and go clockwise, and I believe sometimes we start in a different area and go counterclockwise. And we do that to be fair to everybody. We understand the leaves fall at different rates, and quite frankly, different types of leaves fall at different rates. So Oak Street, with a lot of oak trees, is generally speaking the last place we go because the oaks tend to fall the latest. However, we're at the whim of Mother Nature. We've studied this extensively, and picking up leaves is labor intensive, and it takes 6 weeks no matter what. And that includes overtime on holidays, it includes overtime on weekends, sometimes double time on Sunday. But it takes 6 weeks. And if we don't do it quickly, we run the risk of having leaves out there when we have a substantial snow. Hey, if we get a light dusting, it's fine. But if we get 4 inches and then it freezes up, we are in trouble. So it kicks off the first week of November. We have exactly 6 weeks to do it. And again, we studied this extensively. There's no way to accelerate or decelerate it. One, because we're up against the snow, and number two, it's simply a labor-intensive process. So if you see the ladies and men of Public Works out there collecting leaves in the near future, give them a high five, because it's hard work. Connor and I helped out last year. We may be out there again this year. But at the end of the day, difficult stuff. Look for the schedule last week of October. And again, one year it's clockwise, another year it's counterclockwise, and that's simply to be fair. I will not say we're going to come around for a second collection. Let's get through the first, see how Mother Nature treated us, see how the weather's holding up, get your leaves out there quickly. We'd prefer you bag them, but it is a service we deliver, so we'll do the best we can, but recognize there are some things out of our control, especially as our equipment breaks down. So that's the end. Question number 139 marks the end of today. I'm Mayor Mike. I'm in Town Hall. This is Wednesday. That was Ask the Mayor. Keep your questions coming. Have a great afternoon.